And this one is called
Kingfisher Boats.
Yeah, so Kingfisher makes welded aluminum boats. We are Malcolm and Rachel, and welcome to our channel. We share everything about our retirement lifestyle. Well, hi there. We're back again to talk about our search for a West Coast boat.
It continues.
So we've talked to you previously about a cutwater. You can see a tour there. And we also reviewed a custom pleasure trawler, I guess.
Samson
28. And you can see our tour here. And we're on to another type of vessel. We're actually concentrating more on a boat actually located here on the West Coast and that's built here, which kind of makes more sense, really.
Yep.
And this one is a little different than the ones we were looking at.
This one, yeah, it's quite a bit different.
Yeah.
As you said, it's built in Vernon, BC, which is actually a mainland in BC, but it's a local boat for us. And it's a departure from perhaps what we've been looking at.
That's true.
And I think, and it's good to get a different perspective. It's always good to sort of push the boundaries a little bit. And certainly as we settle into what our new requirements are, this one fits more of the bill.
I think it does.
So it's going to be interesting as we walk through this.
Cheers.
Cheers.
So let's get into it. We aren't looking at a specific model, but we're looking at a manufacturer, actually.
Correct.
And this one is called
Kingfisher Boats.
Yeah, so Kingfisher makes welded aluminum boats. And so this is different. We haven't been looking at anything aluminum yet.
No. And then they also make Eagle Boats, which is perhaps a little bit better known brand. It's a more high scale or upscale brand.
Mm-hmm.
But the Kingfisher brand is made of, durable, thick aluminum, all welded, not riveted.
Yep.
It's something that comes in various sizes. And what we're looking at is not necessarily like a tin boat that you would see on lakes. But it's something that I think they call an expedition boat.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's got kind of like a pilot house almost.
Yeah.
Inside. So it's got like Portuguese style.
Yeah.
Pilot house windows, and it's covered. There's no canvas, which is one of the things that we were saying we didn't want to have any canvas.
Yeah.
And they were, I think, initially built more for fishing, commercial fishing out here.
They are.
But they've sort of graduated to more pleasure craft or leisure boats. I'm not sure what you call them.
Yeah, and I think here we talked to a salesperson, so we actually went into one of the dealerships that's local here.
And we saw the boats too.
We walked on the boat.
Yeah.
We went through it. We talked to them about, the people that use these boats and what for. There's no doubt that there is lineage that comes from fishing. Mm-hmm. And when I say fishing, I don't mean commercial fishing, but more charters, salmon, that kind of thing in the Straits and maybe just off the Pacific. But they've very much graduated these boats to have a little more luxury in them and more amenities. So it's looking at, now you've got hot and cold running water, and you've got that in the cockpit as well as in the boat itself. There's a head in there. There's a galley, small though it may be, and there's a dinette, and there's even a little cuddy, let's call it, so you can overnight on that boat as well, which wouldn't be your typical charter boat by any stretch.
It's not considered luxurious, and I think that's one of the things that appeals to us, that it's more sort of basic. It's got really good bones, good features, and they've added things, some niceties or whatever, but it's actually more of a basic boat, which is kind of our style.
It is our style, and it's very much a performance boat, and by that I don't mean it's a racing boat, but it's one that will get up and go. It's the configuration we were looking at is primarily 2 outboard engines on the back. Yamaha's were the ones we were looking at, but they had others. And so it gives you that redundancy, gives you a little bit of security, albeit if your fuel is bad, they'll both stop. But let's assume that's not the case. And it gets you from A to B pretty quick. So if you want to be quick, you can. If you don't want to, you can go as slow as you want. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. The other thing with an aluminum hull, they're quite durable. I would say they're far more durable if you're going to run it up a little bit onto a beach, or you want to just beach it and get off and enjoy the land for a bit. They're quite durable in salt water, as long as they're protected appropriately.
Yep.
And they dent more than they break. So if you hit something hard, aluminum tends to malform or dent. whereas fiberglass will fracture and doesn't go quite as well.
Damaged, yeah.
And we know that there's a lot of debris in the Georgia Straits. It's a logging area, so there's a lot of floating stuff. And not that we plan on hitting anything, but if you do, it's nice to know that your boat's built for the purpose. So yeah, there's a number of things Kingfisher does very well. It's really our first sort of look into them. And they have multiple models that we were looking at as well. They're all about 10 feet beam, which is quite beamy for an aluminum boat. They have walkways on the back, and some of them actually have walkways mid-transom, which is very convenient for getting on and off. So they're interesting boats for sure, and I think we should get into it and talk about some of the features in the salon and elsewhere that we saw.
Absolutely. Let's do it. So, like we said, the ones we're looking at are kind of like expedition style, and they do have different lines. There's one they have called GFX, which is sort of what they call offshore GFX. And so that has, I think, 3 different versions. They have a 30, 32, and 34 foot length one. They also have one that's kind of called Coastal Express, which is 28 feet. So they're all kind of similar that way. That one has a different beam, I think 8'6". I'm just looking at their little chart here. And the others are 9'6" or 10-foot beams. So they're all kind of within that range. Obviously, an 8'6" beam is easier to trailer, and you can still pull a 10-foot beam, but you need to flag it. You need a certain permit, I think, for that.
You need around here. You need what they call a Class 1 license on your driver's license, which isn't difficult to get. And you do need to just flag it as a wide load, but it's not something that needs an escort. It's not something that needs flashing lights on the top. It's you just need to take those precautions.
The first Kingfisher we toured was the largest at 34 feet. With a 10-foot beam, it had plenty of space and was very nicely appointed. This new vessel was inside being prepared for its new owner. It had twin 450s and pretty much every option included. Climbing up a ladder onto the swim platform, we entered through this gate at the stern. There is a very sturdy sliding door into the cabin and a rear helm for docking or piloting while fishing. The cockpit had plenty of storage, including a dedicated electrical cupboard, storage along each side with fresh and raw water washdowns, live wells, and other utility storage areas. Upon entering the cabin in this 3425 GFX, you can see there's plenty of room, including a generous amount of headroom for Malcolm, who is 6'2". The helm can be customized with electronics and comfortable captain's chair and has great visibility all around. There is plenty of storage in the floor and along each side with deep drawers for storage. The V-berth length is about 6'2", with more storage, lighting, and a hatch above. Looking to stern, there is the galley on the starboard side with fridge, microwave, and sink. The dinette to port has seating for 4 and a folding table with cup holders. There are grab rails along the cabin ceiling along with fishing rod storage. At the rear starboard is the enclosed head. It was great for us to see the Kingfisher 3425 GFX in new condition. Next, we headed out to the yard to see a few other vessels, passing by this much smaller 26-foot Kingfisher. Here's the 30-foot GFX on its triple-axle trailer with twin 200s. Inside, it's very similar to the larger 34-foot version. The cabin is actually 1.5 feet shorter, and the beam is 9'6", yet it still feels surprisingly roomy. There's still lots of storage and a place to sleep. The helm has great visibility, openable windows, a comfortable captain's chair, and amenities in the galley, and even enough headroom for Malcolm, which is achieved by stepping down into the cabin from the cockpit. The head is pretty small, but overall the cabin feels comfortable and lets in lots of natural light. The cockpit has the same feel as the 34-foot vessel. This one has a hinged cabin door rather than a sliding door, and there is the option to add a cover over the door. The smaller 28 and 30-foot vessels are perhaps better suited to our needs, and we can see ourselves getting out on these West Coast waterways, so we're now on the search for a used expedition-type vessel to begin our new adventures. So anyway, the layout is pretty much the same in all of them. When you come into the boat, obviously there's you get on at the back. That's where the engines are. There's a bit of a swim platform, and then there's quite a large cockpit area. Some are larger than others, depending on which one you're looking at, so that would be ideal for your fishing. You can have somewhat of a cover there. but it's really
Yeah.
just kind of over the door. It's not over the whole cockpit because I think you want that open if you're fishing.
You do, and your point around the cockpit is, I think, important. It is a large cockpit
Hmm.
on all of them. The difference will be the salon, regardless of whether you're looking at the 28 or the 34. By and large, the cockpit is the place that shrinks. So the salon will stay more or less the same size, but what they've done is to shorten the boat. They just bring the cockpit in. So if
Yeah.
you're in a 30. You're going to have a couple of extra feet of cockpit. If you're in a 28, you'll have a few less feet of cockpit.
So the salon is the same, is what you're saying.
Yeah, so the
Yeah.
salon stays the same, which actually is really kind of a good feature in our view because it keeps the living space consistent, even though the cockpit may be a little bit
Yeah.
less. So that was interesting.
The layout is great. It's a good layout. It's very much like some of the other boats we were looking at with a small little bathroom. It's got a galley and of course the forward facing co-pilot chair
Yep.
and captain's chair, with a little like sort of a cuddy, like you said, for
Mhm.
sleeping. So it's not, very luxurious, but it's comfortable and well made. Everything is going to last a long time, and they sort of have good storage for fishing rods and other little thoughtful things that you're going to be using while you're out. And it's completely covered. There's a hard top. You don't have to worry about any canvas anywhere. And I think there's even sort of a roof rack on top. So you can even
There is.
you can store a kayak up there. But I think we might install solar panels,
Yeah.
depending on what we're taking. But we might actually want a kayak too. So we'll have to negotiate that a little bit.
No, I think you raise a good point. I mean, and again, these are expedition boats, so they said, you know what, you can throw something on that roof rack, lash it down, and off you go. We have seen people with these boats with dinghies on top. We've seen them
Yeah.
with storage boxes on
Yeah.
top. If we were to get one, and we are, just to be clear, we're looking at used ones, not new ones. We may throw solar panels up there
Yeah.
and have kayaks hanging off the sides.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of configurations, but it gives you a lot of flexibility as to how you want to configure this thing.
And I think it's good to point out we looked at these new ones, and they did have some used ones on their lot
Yeah,
as well.
they did.
And the used ones that we are looking at are probably one of the more popular ones, the 28 and 30-foot model.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they come up, basically you have to kind of make an offer immediately because they don't last very long, or there aren't that many of them, I guess, is really why.
Yeah.
So it's good to know what you want and sort of keep your eye out for that used boat that comes on the market. And so that's really the reason why we're sort of giving you a general overview of Kingfisher, because we don't have a specific boat that we're looking at yet, but we're hoping that one will come on the market soon.
That's right. So we're looking really at the 28 to 30. Those are the sort of the two.
Yeah.
When we were looking for Stay Cool, we were looking for years, but we did the same thing.
Yeah.
We basically looked at boats and thought, you know what, this is the type of boat we want.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to wait for that right boat to show up, and let's not waste time when it does.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the same thing we're looking at here.
Yeah.
Hopefully it won't take us years to get to this boat.
That's not the plan. I think we can.
No.
I think we can.
I think we can expedite it a little bit more than that.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it's good to understand, as we've always said, your requirements, determine what meets and where you're willing to compromise.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you've made that commitment, then you can concentrate on really the market. So where are these boats? Are they used? Are they new? We know, for instance, that most of these boats come with trailers. The trailers are primarily 3-axle trailers, and we know we're probably not going to be able to pull it with what we currently own as far as a vehicle.
We definitely can't.
So then the thought is, all right, well, we can't just look at a boat. We have to look at what vehicle we need to also pull this thing. So we're looking at both of those factors, because we do want to own a boat like this, and we do want to have it for several years. It's not something we just want to buy, do a loop, and leave in a year.
And explore the waterways. There's so many waterways to explore, so we might need to trailer the boat somewhere.
Correct.
We can probably drive the boat there as well, but this might be a little more efficient to actually take it on a trailer.
Yeah, that's right. And but to your point, this is a boat that would take you to Alaska. This is something that would get you up there. It would allow you to weather some of that choppy weather and waves. And it's also really good, I think, for those leisurely cruises where you've got great weather and you just want to enjoy the cockpit and have a good time overnighting in one of the fjords. So, and to your point earlier, you could put it on a trailer and you could tow it somewhere else, and you can camp on the boat while you're in transit.
Good.
Drop the boat
Yeah.
in, and then enjoy some time on the water in a very different environment.
Yeah.
A lot of options when you start towing a boat that you can then use.
One of the things we haven't done yet is try it in the water, and we would definitely like to do that.
Yeah.
This is an aluminum boat, so it's a lot lighter than the fiberglass. So that has pluses in that it's lighter to trailer, but it's also not as heavy and sits differently in the water. So it will probably ride on the waves a little higher than a fiberglass boat, which would sit in the water more. And we've owned both fiberglass and aluminum boats in the past, so we kind of have a feel for what that would be like. So we're going to have to pick, a weather window that's good for kind of riding on top of the waves instead of, pushing through the waves like we did with Stay Cool.
I think you're right, and I think the other thing to keep in mind with aluminum boats is noise. They do have more noise when they're on the water. The slapping of the hull, even at anchor, they typically have more noise, and it's something to be aware of. And also, you're right. Like we'll use the example of Stay Cool. Stay Cool would just more or less push through the water, and part the water in front of you. Whereas this boat, you're going to be going over it.
Yeah, it's not a trawler-shaped hull at all.
No, and the speeds we're talking about, you've got to be careful because you can jump this thing. So I'm not into jumping boats.
No, thank you.
But I do think it will be a very different ride. It'll be a different experience, both underway and when it's stopped at anchor. So it's something you just need to be aware of. The other thing that is quite different with a boat like this, you can get to some very remote, isolated, shallow places.
Yeah.
And so you can really enjoy some of those tucked away little anchorages, or as I said earlier, drive it up on the beach a little bit. And that's a very different experience than what you could do with, let's say, a Stay Cool, where you have to anchor out, dinghy in. So I think, there's pluses and minuses. We've experienced the trawler life. It's going to be interesting for us, I think, to experience this life and going in with our eyes wide open, knowing that nothing's perfect. But I think we're ready for the next chapter.
Yeah, so there's all sorts of things we can still look at. We're sort of leaning towards this way, and but we're staying open-minded to other options that might come on the market. And you just never know. Things happen. People sell their boats for various reasons, and so something might come up that is very appealing and is completely different from this. You never know. But whatever we see, we're going to share it with you and take you along for the ride. Thanks for watching today. And if you have any questions or if you have a Kingfisher, let us know. We'd love to hear from you and what your experience is and how you use your boat. If you've taken it on a beach or where you like to anchor, let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
We really would. The community of boating is unlike anything we've experienced before, and we're lucky that people are willing to share their experiences and knowledge.
Yeah.
So I would echo that. If you own an Eagle, a Kingfisher, one of those aluminum expedition type boats, drop a line in the comment. Love to hear from you. Pros, cons, whatever floats your boat.